you born a man?
It's the end of the year, and I thought what better thing to do than go and actually have a Q&A, because it's been a little while since I've actually had a question and answer. So I polled both my patrons and my YouTube members, and today I'm going to be answering all of their questions. Chaos Cultist will be here to read the questions for me, so let's go ahead and begin.
Will we be seeing more of Adam the Blompier on the channel?
Yes, provided that I can convince him to come back on, which I think will be very doable. We've been chatting a little bit about this. I definitely want to have him on at minimum for a rematch in Unmatched, because I am not satisfied with how our past games went, and I must redeem myself. Also, I really want to get him on just to chat with him at some point about painting, maybe get him to paint with me at some point. That would be very, very cool. So yes, as long as everything goes as I plan, he will be back on the channel.
All right, and some more questions that are more about how the channel functions. One question asks, do you own a hobbies shop where you get all your stuff from? And if not, because you don't.
No, I don't. I wish I did.
What store do you go to for your hobby needs?
So no, I don't own a hobby shop. There was a point where I had ambitions to, and I have worked for a hobby store in the past, but I don't actually own one myself. And I actually try to go to any local game store that I can. I actually shop around at a lot of different game stores. And so there's not one in particular that I would say that I go to more than others.
Can you name some recommendations in the San Francisco Bay Area?
So in the San Francisco Bay Area, there's Games of Berkeley in Berkeley itself. Fantastic, especially if you're wanting just a humongous board game selection. There's also, you can find these ones in malls. So if you're not doing I'm in a local area, but maybe I'm in a big mall or touristy area, the Legends stores are pretty good. Actually, they have a variety of Warhammer,
that's a
Magic.
Chain in the San Jose.
Yeah, that's a chain in the San Jose Bay Area. There's a couple of other Games of lines, but they're not actually associated with Games of Berkeley, but I do shop with them occasionally as well, because I found that they also have a pretty good selection, especially if you're into Magic, Warhammer, basically the big...
Black Diamond Games
Black Diamond
chain in the Bay Area.
Yep.
I don't think we have one immediately nearby, but I've been to them before.
Yes, we have shopped with them before, and they had great stuff as well. So there's a lot of different places in my local area, and honestly, I would just encourage you to also shop locally as well. When I do go online, and don't get me wrong, I do go online and occasionally I do have to use Amazon, but I try to avoid that. And when I am shopping online, I try to buy direct from some of the hobby companies. So for example, Gamer's Grass, when I'm buying their stuff, I go directly to their website and buy from them. Same with Tooth and Coats. I tend to buy it directly from them.
At this point, I don't even find Amazon to necessarily be cheaper than directly from them.
They're really not. They're really not, which is why I just go and support the business itself rather than trying to give Amazon more of my money. So I either shop locally or shop directly with the businesses themselves if I'm having to do it online.
Yeah, and if you're looking for something in your local area, the honest truth is there aren't that many local game store and hobby stores left, especially, at least not in the United States.
Yeah, there really are.
So, Google or Yelp search for, hobby shop near you.
Board game store near you.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And you're probably only going to find a couple anyway. And if you find one you don't know about or you've never been to, I'd recommend trying that one.
Yep, go check them out, support them. Let's keep these businesses alive.
All right, we actually have a number of questions that also fit into the same category here.
Okay.
And they kind of come down to how exactly, I guess you can split into two categories. One is, how do you plan content for the channel?
Okay.
And secondarily, how do you find time to do Magic and Warhammer and video games and all the Lego that's behind you? And your OnlyFans work, and doing the upcoming projects that I know are happening, but they don't even know about yet.
Ooh, some of these I may not even know. I kind of have a vague idea, but I don't know the details. Anyways, but yes, how do I get it all done, and do I plan my content? Yes, I definitely plan things, but...
No, let me correct her right there. I plan the content.
Okay, yes. Chaos Cultist plans the content. He and I will have a lovely little meeting sometimes where we write out a calendar, and then I try to stick to that calendar. And that is my objective, is to stick to the calendar. I'm really bad about planning things. I do need them in order to get content done, because when I don't have a plan, when I'm not scheduling things, it's bad. It's bad. You should see the face Chaos Cultist is giving me right now. It's bad. And so I
turning into a sheep is actually why I was giving you that look. You're bad.
Bad. Listen, sometimes it happens. Sometimes my inner lamb comes out. But to answer the actual question, Chaos Cultist does do a lot of the scheduling for us. I rely on him a lot for that because I'm just not good at it myself. But I'm good at following a schedule once I have it, generally. Not always, but generally.
I had a successful career as a producer and project manager at one point.
And I rely on him heavily to utilize those skills to make me get shit done.
But the way it tends to work is I observe where her energies are taking her, what she actually feels like working on in a given quarter. And I tend to build things around that. I knew that she wanted, so for just to use a recent example, she knew she wanted to start Age of Sigmar.
Yep.
I have been at the forefront of encouraging her to paint faster.
Yes.
And so I'm the one who's scheduled for her having to paint or assemble.
Do my spearhead challenge.
And paint, and do the spearhead challenge on the channel.
Yes. Which we are still going to be concluding officially with a game that will be coming later this month live on the channel, so be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I believe we're going to do it on the Saturday the 21st, the Saturday before Christmas.
Yes, I believe that was the plan as well. I just couldn't remember the exact date. So
once again, one of us is doing the scheduling and it isn't her.
It isn't me!
Yes. Admittedly, like, I handle a lot of the YouTube scheduling. You handle more of the fan site scheduling.
Correct. And to go back to the other portion of this question that was asking, like, how do I find time to do it all? Because yes, it's a lot. I do YouTube, I do my fan sites, I do Instagram, I'm answering messages, answering emails, etc. And still finding time to still enjoy my hobbies. And to be honest, if I wasn't doing this as my job, I don't really think that I would be able to actually enjoy the hobbies and still do it as a business. I will say that, like, when I was working as a buyer for a game store, and doing YouTube full time, this was before the fan sites, but like still doing YouTube full time, it was driving me a little bit bonkers. I was tired and I could feel it. And it wasn't great, but since now I've just turned all of my hobbies into my business, which is not necessarily the most healthy thing, so I'm not going out there and encouraging everybody to do that. It is not for everybody. It is a lot of work, and it can destroy your love for the hobby a little bit if you aren't smart about it, or like pace yourself and actually like give yourself downtime, which I do. And I'm only able to do that because I do what I do, and I made it my job.
Yeah, because
yes.
I would like to add on to that. It's part of the reason why you have so many hobbies as well.
Yes.
Because bluntly, both from just a mental health as well as a business point, just being a 40K channel can be exhausting. And bluntly, if 40K has another
really?
7th edition,
yep.
That era, bluntly, if 40K suddenly becomes uncool or unpopular, that's bad for business.
Exactly.
But we have many other hobbies. But it's funny because this actually transitions right into the next question.
Oh, perfect. Let's do it.
Yes. So, you have a lot of fun and exciting hobbies.
Yes.
Talk about your hobbies that you have that you don't film and feature on the channel, Angela. I say this with a mocking tone in my voice.
Yes, I loved this question when I was going through these and compiling them all, because I can't talk about a hobby that I don't film or make content out of, because even though... Nope, I still share that on stories pretty regularly, so technically I'm still using it for content. There's literally nothing... Okay. Context. I am a hobby channel, but I'm also kind of a lifestyle channel because I have a hobby lifestyle, right? And because of that, and because I do have such a broad interest of hobbies that I do like to showcase, I find it hard not to want to share that with everybody. So literally, I can't think of a hobby that I have not shared publicly on any of my socials, let alone YouTube. Like, I guess the only one that's closest would be cooking. Like, I really like to cook. I don't do it a huge amount. I've started to do it more because I have a really good kitchen for it now. But like, I haven't done like a dedicated video on it, but I do share it fairly regularly on like Instagram, and it's part of my Discord. So I share it with them as well. But even like Lego, I've done content on the channel with miniatures. Obviously, I have scale models, I have board games, I have Magic, I have TCGs in general. I have, you know what? The one hobby actually that I don't share is drawing. I don't draw on the channel. I don't post that anywhere publicly, really. I don't really draw as much as I used to in general anyways, but that was technically like one of my first hobbies. And I don't do that as much anymore. So there you go. Just painting, like not miniatures, but like drawing and
2D.
like coloring, like 2D, yeah, traditional art, is the one thing that I don't do live anymore. But that's mostly just because I don't have time to do that much anyways, because I'm doing so many other things that I really, really enjoy. And I'm just like, well, I'm going to just keep doing these other things that I can also monetize. Maybe that says something about me, but I don't know. I really like working and I really like my hobbies, and I've combined both of them in there. So it's what I do now. And I really, really like it. Next question.
Next question is, what was the first army or miniatures you and I, the Chaos Cultist, painted together?
Ooh. Okay, so I think, and I have a bad memory for this, but the first like armies we painted together, I would say was like a really focused effort when we got back into Warhammer in 8th edition, because when you introduced me to 40K when we were in college,
Yep.
and I did paint a little bit.
Edition,
yeah, 5th to 6th edition. It was like the tail end of 4th, and 5th had just started, but there was still a lot of but there was still a lot of 4th like content out there. Like the codexes were still readily available. I think you could still find the core rule books. Like a lot of the stores locally had them still. So I know it was close to the beginning of 5th. And while I do think we painted a little bit together, like you were working on Blood Angels or Orcs at the time, and I was working on my Crimson Fists at the time. But like that lasted maybe 2 or 3 sessions. I don't even think it was that many. So then when we actually started really painting together was when 8th edition came out. We got back into the hobby. Contrast paints had just come out. Actually, it was before contrast paints had come out. We started working on my Poxwalkers. I think you were still working on the Blood Angels at the time, because
Primaris.
You were painting new Primaris. I was working on the Poxwalkers. But then you started helping me with my Poxwalkers because I think you ended up going Necron.
Yep.
With the 8th edition, or the...
Yeah.
No, you just did... Yeah, with 8th edition, you decided to go Necron, so we ended up doing that. And so for the longest time,
and then life ended up being about Necron, so I ended up having to redo half my army.
It's true, it's true. But that's what we've worked on first, was Death Guard and Space Marines / Necrons was the very first armies we worked on together. Man, that was good times. I loved painting the Death Guard. That was so fun.
Our very first miniature, just to be a technical mansplainer.
Yeah. What was our very first miniature?
I believe it was a Crimson Fist Space Marine or a Rhino, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Was it the Rhino or was it the Drop Pod?
I think it was the Rhino.
Okay. Because I do remember the Drop Pod as well.
I think it was a Crimson Fist Rhino that we painted. Also, folks, you might hear Kita visiting us. Let's not have that happen right now. All right. Maybe one more question, then we'll go feed the cat. How about that? All right. This question's dorky.
I love it.
Oh, this one, fine. How long did it take for you to know CC Chaos Cultist was the perfect one for you?
So, I knew almost immediately after I got over the severe shock of actually realizing that he wasn't joking when he said he was like interested in me, which I know is ridiculous. I know a lot of you people are in the comments are going to start like angrily typing and be like, what the fuck do you mean? You're beautiful. Because you guys tell me that all the time and I really appreciate it. But back when I was younger, I had severe self-esteem problems. Okay. And I also like never dated through high school. So I was convinced that I was undateable in some capacity. Like, I was too nerdy, like, not cute enough, like, not approachable, like, maybe I was just too angry sounding, because, dear God, I got told that a lot, because I have a very aggressive tone, and I'm getting thumbs up from Chaos Cultist in the background about that, because, dear gosh, it still happens. But here's the thing, guys. I didn't date when I was younger, so I didn't really believe when he, like, approached me the first time and was like, hey, you want to go out? And I was like, this has got to be some sort of trick. So I did it, expecting some sort of trick to get it over with. And that never happened. And then I realized that, oh, he's legitimate. He was actually interested in me. And then I was like, holy cow, and my brain exploded. And after that, he was never getting rid of me. So yeah, that's how it happened.
All right, for the next set of questions, we actually had a group of them that were all related to your past / what you were doing before hobby night.
Okay, awesome. Let's go.
All right. What is the worst job you have ever had? Can I guess?
Yes.
Can I guess?
Yes, please guess.
The frame shop.
Yes, but maybe not. Not because of the frame shop.
At one of the locations, because you worked at multiple locations. I'm talking about one particular one, and you know which one I'm talking about.
Yes, that was definitely the worst job I ever had. So I've actually not had like a super varied work experience. I've done retail, I've done a little bit of office work, and then I've done YouTube. Like, that's pretty much the extent of my work experience. And the worst job that I definitely had was I was working at a frame shop, and the frame shop portion was great. Like, I liked actually doing picture framing. I wasn't necessarily building the frames myself. They were pre-joined, but I was doing the assembly of the art into the frame with all the protective materials, cutting the mats, cutting the glass, doing the assembly. I really liked that part. I thought that was really fun. And at one of the locations, zero problems. The worst part about the job was, one, I had a boss that was just one of those bosses, you know. But the other actual biggest problem was I got stuck as the assistant manager running our receiving, which we refer to as truck. And this generally happened starting at 1 a.m. and went until about 9 a.m. the next morning, or I guess that same morning. It was a really early morning shift, and I hated it. And because frames, if you didn't know, pre-made ones that come with metal or are made of metal, made of wood, and have glass in them, which was like all of them, and especially when they're big, are really heavy. They weighed a lot. I was very sore every single time afterwards. I was incredibly grumpy every single time afterwards. And my boss always was like, my back is just, I can't do it. And I'm like, okay, what about my back? Because my back's crap too, and I have like a pinched nerve, blah, 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 anger. That was the worst job I ever had.
I'll answer for myself.
Yes, what was yours? Because you've had like...
So there have been periods of time at certain jobs that were the worst periods of time. But this is literally the worst job. So I'm going to go with the worst job.
Uh-huh.
And this was a job where I was a game designer at a mobile game studio that still exists, but is not nearly as big as they once were, but for legal reasons, I won't say their name.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought me on to work on a project that immediately was getting canned from the top level.
Oh, yeah.
To summarize what it was, is we had a reskin of a game coming out that was based on Marvel superheroes. The company before that, not before that, but like a month after I joined, launched another Disney IP game. It did not do well.
Nope. And
for this and some other associated reasons, our project got canceled, which then resulted on me getting put onto a game that it never got released, so I can just say it was a Clash of Clans clone. Mm-hmm. Doing boss design and some cool PvE co-op stuff that's for neither here nor there. But the problem is that project already had a game designer, and that game was his baby.
Yep.
And he would not give me an iota of slack on anything. And I don't mean like he was harsh on my work. I mean, the man wouldn't allow me to work on anything.
It was the weirdest thing, because normally when people have like bad job experiences, it's my sort of job experience where it's like they're overworking you, they're making you do hard labor and you just don't want to deal with it, or they're making you work really bad hours.
I had very first world problem.
Yeah.
Very first world problem of
had job, nothing to do at job, hated job because had nothing to do.
And the office smelled bad.
It did. I visited it once and only once for that reason.
This was a gamer studio. This was a game development studio that was stereotypically full of stinky gamers.
It very much so.
It really was. All right, next question. Related to work. If you weren't doing the hobby stuff, what would you be doing? And I think it's also appropriate to say if you weren't doing your OF and Fansly stuff along with YouTube, what would you be doing?
So I think if I wasn't doing any of the content creation, anything, I would probably still be working at Games of Berkeley as their buyer. I think that I probably wouldn't have left that job because I really enjoyed it. I really liked being a part of that team. I really liked that store and all of that. I also really enjoyed the perks of being a part of that team. However, that's where I think I would be. And if I wasn't working with them, I think I would be working to own my own hobby shop. That is an ambition that Chaos Cultist and I have talked about many times. I know it's something that he's long-term wanted to do. It's something that I've also long-term wanted to do, but he's wanted to do it even longer than I. And it's not even necessarily out of the picture, but with how the economy is and how people shop nowadays, I just don't know if it would be viable.
I imagine it would be something different. It would still be a third space dedicated to gaming.
Because I really like that idea. Like, that's the part, like, it's not even the shop portion, like the selling board games or necessarily that interests me about owning a game store. It's it as a third space and a place for people to play and connect and be a community. I love that element of it. And I would still love to do something with that aspect.
Really? Yeah, for me, it would be setting up like a maker studio space.
Oh, that's so cool.
That, okay, we're talking pie in the sky, you win the lottery.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the economic viability of this anywhere.
Yeah.
But, something that is a maker space with like a board game cafe.
Yeah, I would love to have like a maker space that has like 3D printers, maybe a wood shop, like, etc., that kind of stuff in there.
And some college towns have pulled it off.
Some have, yeah.
Because they have like a large amount of engineering students.
I would love that though.
Or something like that.
But then have the board game cafe next to it though. Yeah. That way people can still play, like, and 3D print their models and then play some board game.
I'm imagining, it's like a warehouse situation.
Oh, that would be, you'd have to have a really big space for it. It's total pie in the sky, like, dreams. But like, if I had free reign and I didn't have to really worry about things, that would be what I'd want to be doing. If I had to be sensible and like pay attention to bills and everything because I didn't win the lottery, my expectation would be I'd be working for a hobby shop because I would want like to just be part of that community more directly. And I really enjoyed that in the past.
Yeah. And speaking of the experience at the local game store, what kind of things did you look for when you were evaluating a game? Like, what made you look at something and go, hey, we're going to buy 6 copies of that to stock?
So it changed over time, and I love this question because it's a little bit of a different process than it's okay. Let me start slightly over. It is both similar to how we as consumers shop for board games ourselves, but also mildly different because you are still having to pay attention to like the store's profit margin and those kinds of things. And at the beginning, what it was, because when I first started being the buyer, a lot of the like larger brands that we know now weren't quite as big. You didn't have to like just immediately guarantee getting their next game would probably be a hit and you could sell it. So there was a lot more like picking and choosing. I would go to boardgamegeek.com and check out the reviews and see things there. I'd follow links to like the original Kickstarter pages or those kinds of things if they happen to have that, etc. And I would just evaluate like based off of what I knew my local community liked. Like I was in a college town, but I did also have some regulars. So I tried to take into consideration what is the college crowd like? What do my regulars gravitate towards? And how can I make sure to get enough of both to keep both happy without like bankrupting the store and having them go broke on product, etc.
Your store went through very large ebbs and flows for certain properties as well.
Yes.
So you had to be aware of like, there was a point in time when 40K or like, Star Wars Legion was very big.
Yep.
But no one was playing it there.
Yep, exactly.
So you have to be aware of that.
Yeah, and it was a lot of paying attention to local trends, obviously national trends of just like what's big and hot. And then the unfortunate thing is down the line, as the companies grew, I got to spend less and less time actually researching things as much as I was just like, well, this is coming from Asmodee or a company owned by Asmodee, therefore I will get 3 if it's a lesser known company and 6 or 12 if it's a really big known company. Same thing with like Stonemaier games. Like when Wingspan exploded, everything after that, like if it was Wingspan related, I made sure to get like a stupid large amount of quantities because it just kept selling and it was bonkers.
It should also be pointed out that you were working at this game store through the late 20-teens until 2021.
Yes.
Yeah.
The end of 2020. Yeah, I think I stopped like December 2020 because I don't think I went into the tax year of 2021.
That's right. Yeah, because it was you only were there for 1 year of lockdown. I remember. But the important thing to call out with that is also that was the board game boom.
Oh yeah, it was
that was
like
the Kickstarter. Kingdom Death had come, almost a decade earlier, and we were at the tail end of that, explosion.
It was also the explosion of, people being into collectible miniatures, people being into collectible card games, people being into just collectibles in general.
The end of getting, honestly, cheap manufacturing and shipping out of China before lockdown drove the prices very high.
Exactly. It was a really wild time, and there was a lot of fun research to do, and it was just research. I would go to sites and look things up, talk to my community, see what they were interested in. We would use Facebook and stuff to do polls occasionally for our locals. It'd be like, this is coming out. Are you interested in it at all? And if they had no interest, then we just didn't get it. So it was really sort of based on the locals and the community and the vibe of the store at the time, as much as it was just my personal opinion and whether or not I liked the game. Because don't get me wrong, I still picked and choosed a few things every now and then that I was like, I have no idea if anybody else is going to like this, but thematically, I think it looks really cool and I'm going to give it a shot. So that did happen occasionally, but I didn't do that very often because it wasn't my money I was spending, it was my boss's, and I didn't want to get in trouble.
For the next set of questions, Angela, I have assembled what I call the bad faith section.
Oh.
These are questions left by viewers who I don't think were actually asking a question. Maybe they were attempting to get a rise out of you, or as some would put it, troll. But let's go ahead and start with these, because they've been asked, some of them multiple times, and I think some of them deserve an answer.
Excellent. Hit me with the first one.
The first question is, were you born a man?
No.
Okay. The next question is, why do you have fan sites, such as OnlyFans and Fansly, when you could concentrate on painting and work on the channel 24/7? Don't you have faith in your painting skills, Angela?
I absolutely have faith in my painting skills, but let me tell you, boy howdy, does YouTube not pay the bills. It really, really doesn't. Don't get me wrong, I am very glad to have the extra income from that, and I am very grateful for the supporters on YouTube, and I'm grateful for my Patreon supporters as well. However, it just doesn't pay the bills. But the real reason that I do those things, have those sites, and do that kind of work is because I really, really like it. I hate to break this to you. I don't know how I have made this, unclear at this point. But I'm a big perv. And I really enjoy being a big perv. And for those of you that have indulged in my fan sites, you know that I like to show off. I really, really do. I mean, that's partially why I'm on camera doing YouTube, is because I like being in front of camera, showing off to people, chatting with people, and being slightly the center of attention. I am a Leo, after all. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I like doing it, and it also pays my bills. Oh boy, does it pay my bills. And I'm very, very grateful for that. So anybody that supports me on those sites, thank you guys. You guys are awesome. You know that I enjoy you. You know that I, respect you and appreciate everything that you do for me. And, well, I know that you respect and appreciate everything I do for you.
Well, related to that.
Yes.
Do you worry about the impression you are leaving on young girls in the hobby?
So I actually have thought about this, and I'm going to take a little bit more of a serious tone here because I do think this is an important question. And no, I don't think that I am leaving a bad impression on young girls for a couple of reasons. First of all, I am an entrepreneur who is in control of her body and her own work and gets to do the things that I love while making money off of it. And I think that should be something that people should aspire to, regardless of gender. And I think that I really showcase that I'm genuinely loving what I'm doing. And so I hope that that comes across. The other reason I'm not that worried about it is, frankly, guys, I've looked at my analytics and children don't watch my channel. Like, they don't follow me on Instagram. They don't watch my channel much. I think I have like a point something percent of under 18, maybe.
I'll pull it up and put it on screen.
But
maybe it's grown.
Maybe it has grown.
The last I looked, it was like sub 2%.
It was, and also like my channel's also dominated by men.
Well,
it's a Warhammer channel. I mean, it's a hobby channel that tends to just skew more like dude hobbies anyways.
You do model tanks.
Model tanks, Warhammer, wargaming in general, painting miniatures. I know there's women that do these things as well. I'm one of them. But we're not the dominant species.
You are the exception.
I think a lot of us are the exception, the women that do this hobby. And so like my channel is watched mostly by men who are over 18. So no, I don't really worry about the impression I'm leaving on young people, regardless of gender, because they're just not watching me. And what I do on my Safe for Work channels, I make sure to keep Safe for Work appropriate, and I don't really bring the full spice to those pages because I don't want to set a bad example for the young people out there.
The spice must flow.
The spice must flow. That is very true. It must flow, but only in the appropriate places, and you know where to find them.
Stepping away from that somewhat serious topic, we'll switch back into gaming.
Yay!
And a question that we got actually a couple variations of is Age of Sigmar or 40K, and then in brackets I want to throw on to the end, or what other game system?
Ooh, okay. So, this might be a slightly controversial answer. It probably won't be that controversial, actually. I suspect a lot of people may feel this way at this point. So when it comes to the difference between Age of Sigmar and 40K for me, I like 40K for its lore and the miniatures for the most part, although there are some exceptions, and we all have heard those rants, and I'm not going to go into it here. But I do like 40K for its lore and just its characters and that kind of thing. However, having played Spearhead and played Combat Patrol, I actually really prefer Spearhead. Granted, I've only played it like once or twice, but I really, really liked it. And I thought it was super, super fun. Is there a system that I would say outside of those two? I mean, yes, absolutely. It's Blood Bowl. Play Blood Bowl, damn it. Absolutely. I just love Blood Bowl. I will say that I think Atomic Mass Games has a variety of systems that are very enjoyable. I remember when I played Shatterpoint, I really liked that, and I'd love to play some more of that. I just haven't really had the time for it. So I would say there's tons and tons out there, and I know everybody has been dying for me to play one-page rules. I'll get around to it. I promise. At some point. I swear.
My problem is I found out it's more than one page.
It is more than one page. I know that, like, you really, supposedly only need the one, but I don't know.
You really need, the 40-page.
I was like, I feel like there's more, because you need your army rules, and then, there's, you need the special rules. Exactly. So, it seems like it's actually more than one page, but I know it's supposed to be relatively simplified, so I am still eager to look into it. I just haven't yet. But yeah, I would say when it comes to 40K, I like their lore better, but I like the game of Age of Sigmar better at this point.
That's fair. And speaking of both of the 40K and Sigmarine universes, favorite factions in both?
Ooh, okay. So for 40K, it's Death Guard. I have very fond memories of them.
Yes. Mine's actually, despite the name Chaos Cultist, mine's the Eldari, and it's the Bieltan, and I know they're part of the Yanari now, but I played back in 3rd edition when the Bieltan were their own craft world, and I'm still bitter about it, so whenever you make a ranger who's like, I'm not joining them, screw off, I'm that.
Exactly, that it would be the Chaos Cultist. No, but for me, it's Death Guard. My first army was Space Marines. It was Crimson Fist, but Death Guard with 8th edition, like, just holds a very special place in my heart because that's where we got back into the game. I really invested in the game at that point. It was the first time that I completely painted a full army. Chaos Cultist and I painted it together because he painted some of my Demon Princes and helped me with my dozens and 60 Poxwalkers. Dear God. So many flashbacks.
It was like 70, actually.
We ended up painting more than we actually needed because we're masochists like
we
that.
had tutorial. Once we paid for the tutorial.
We did.
And testers.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a bunch of Poxwalkers painted. So Death Guard just holds a really special place for me. And I know nothing about the lore for really any of the factions in Age of Sigmar because honestly, the lore does not, every time I've tried, it does not interest me. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. I apologize, Age of Sigmar fans. I still like playing the game.
You like Total War Warhammer, so you know the old world.
I know the old... Yeah, no, I like old world. Don't get me wrong. Old world lore, love it. Age of Sigmar lore, I don't know. However, I will say that I do really like my Seraphon. I'm a little biased because it's the army that I started with, and I've only played with them, and so I have no other, like, outside of aesthetics, like, choices to really base off of, because that's the only one I've played with. But I really, really liked the way the Seraphon played. If you haven't noticed, I like tough, tanky, slightly slow armies.
It's true.
It's very true. I Nurgle, Seraphon, they're both very tough, very tanky, and not the fastest. So what can I say? I have a type and I've picked it. And also I just really, painting Seraphon is really fun. I have done that prior to getting into Age of Sigmar, like full stop. And it was a blast, and I knew it was going to be a blast again, which is why I picked them for the Spearhead Challenge. So I'm going to stick with them.
No one asked me, but for me, it would be the Undead in Age of Sigmar and the Dark Elves in Warhammer Fantasy. This might be the other reason I'm bitter against Age of Sigmar, is I was a Malekith fanboy, because I was a goth edgelord teenager.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Speaking of goth edgelord teenage years,
yes.
What was the very first miniature you painted, Angela, during those years, and do you still have it?
So I don't remember which one specifically was the first, but I have two that I know were very, very early on. And I do have both of them still, because I would never throw away any of my miniatures that I've painted. That would be blasphemy. It was either a old Space Marine from the Warhammer 40k 5th edition starter set. So the Space Marines from that era, as a Crimson Fist. And I do have him. I've shown him on my Instagram at least. I think I've shown him on the channel actually, once before. I keep him around because he is not painted the best, but I like to remind myself where I came from. The other miniature that I also keep around for the same reason, and I think this actually might have been the first one that I painted, is a Metal Reaper miniature that I got at a convention that Chaos Cultist actually headed in college. It was our college convention, and we did like a collab thing where it was a couple of different clubs all working together to put on a nerd con. And we ended up, like, you reached out to Reaper and was like, hey, we're putting a con together. Could you send miniatures and paints for us for a paint and take? And they did. And that was awesome. So if you're ever doing an event, I don't know if they do this as often as they used to, but you used to be able to just contact them and be like, hey, I'm doing this thing. And then if you show like credentials, like they
helped that it was a school convention, so it was a nonprofit.
Yeah. So they just sent it, and like, I'm sure it was a tax write-off for them. But hey, if you're doing a nonprofit like event, especially for kids, reach out to Reaper, reach out to some of these other like miniature companies and see if they'll supply stuff for paint and takes. But regardless, it was I think a wizard or a sorcerer or possibly a rogue. I can't remember. It had a cloak. I still have it as well. But it was a cloaked figure, and I painted that. It was metal. It was awesome. And yeah, those were the two first miniatures that I ever painted, and I have both of them still.
All right. And sorry, lost my train of thought in this. What anticipated upcoming release or potential release has you the most hyped?
Emperor's Children! I want Fulgrim. So I've been looking at the Warhammer community post updates. Yes, I've been seeing them. No, we have not talked about them live on the channel. I mean, we're technically talking about them right now. And I have been seeing them, and I do love what I'm seeing. I will admit, I am pleased, but I have still not seen a single hint of that fat snake ass, and I want to see Fulgrim. I want a peek of at least some scales, like a curve or something. Like, give me a silhouette. That's all I want. I also have not gone like on Reddit to check and see whether or not like there's leaks or anything specifically. So if there are, I'll go find them later, possibly. You can tell me about them in the comments and I'll go find them later. But that's the one I'm looking forward to most, is specifically The Ember's Children come 2025.
All right. What is your favorite game that no one else you know knows about? I don't count.
I don't think it's like unknown because I've definitely talked about it on the channel. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have an entire video dedicated to it.
You do.
But it's still one of my like all-time favorite games up there. And I feel like people don't talk about it very often. And I really like it. So I'm going to say the Undaunted series. It's a deck builder war game. They have a sci-fi version now, which I have not tried, but the early editions of it, which there are, I think, 4 variations of, were all set in World War II. Because you have Normandy, you have the North Africa, you have Stalingrad, and then there's like a British-based one that I don't remember the actual like subtitle for specifically, but it's like, I think it involves aircraft a lot. Is the mechanics that are introduced into it, which is really cool. And I love
the Battle of Britain.
Okay, yeah, Battle of Britain. I think that is the title of it. So yeah, I really love those games, and I haven't tried the sci-fi version yet, but I'm very excited about it, and at some point I would love to. So who knows? Maybe I'll get it for Christmas or something. I have no idea. But yeah, so Undaunted, definitely a known game out there, but I feel like not everybody I talk to knows about it. Therefore, I'm going to pick it.
And is there a game or minis or any kind of like mass hobby collection that you've spent a large amount of money on that you regret buying? Basically, did you get buyer's remorse for anything that you have purchased in the hobby?
This might sound awful, but no. I'm not actually sure that I do. Like, have I wasted some money on some things? Absolutely. But most everything that I have, I mean, this is partially because I'm a collector, so I get joy from seeing a collection of things in my house.
Yeah, we're maximalists. We're not minimalists.
Yeah, I'm a maximalist.
And look behind her.
Exactly. Like, I can't say that I've really the other reason I can say that I haven't really regretted buying anything is because when I have decided to like go big on something and spend like a ton of money all at once on a hobby, like I'm getting back into Magic and suddenly buying like $1,000 worth of Magic or something like that, I planned for that. Like I make sure that I set aside funding for that because I know how I am. I know how I get when I get into a new thing. And therefore I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to get into this hobby, then I want to make sure that I'm financially prepared to get into this hobby to satisfy the initial burst of the hobby entry point. So maybe that's why I don't regret the purchases that I've made.
In our penultimate section, we have a number of questions regarding painting.
Woo-hoo!
A couple people asked sort of what your priorities were when it came to approaching a game. Is it, do you consider yourself sort of a models first kind of person? Or do you care about the rules and kind of consider yourself a gamer first and foremost?
Ooh. This is a tough question, actually. And I remember this combination of questions because it kind of gave me a struggle when I was thinking about them and sort of formulating my answers in my head beforehand. Because on one hand, I think the game rules ultimately are the most important thing for me when I'm actually planning on playing a game with miniatures against other people. Because I find that if the game that I'm playing is well presented, well thought out, a good game, quote unquote, then generally I will have a good time against my opponent. My opponent will be having fun, which will make me have fun. So that kind of becomes a null point, like, for that. So the opponent kind of gets taken out of the question. But as I just mentioned earlier, I am a collector by nature. Like, I just like to collect things. And my very large pantry full of unpainted miniatures is proof of that. As well as, I mean, you can literally see the collections behind me and all of that. I've showcased how much I like to collect things. So miniatures are very important, and I definitely, like, will jump into a faction within a game system once I've decided, oh, seems like a cool system I want to play in. I will definitely, like, pick a faction, primarily based off of aesthetic or just, like, it vibing with me. But I do think I prioritize, at this point, the game being good for me to want to invest the time and energy and money in the additional products like collecting the miniatures. Hence why, like, GW has had a stranglehold on me for so long, because they keep going through these waves of being really good and bad and good and bad and good and bad. And they have so many systems that they just keep me in, and it just has a hold. But yeah, I hope that answers the question.
I believe so. And when you are painting these miniatures that you collect so dearly,
yes,
do you prefer acrylics or speed paint / contrast paints when painting?
Ooh, okay, so back when this channel started, my immediate gut, like, answer would have been speed paint, contrast paints. Because
you were the contrast queen in
I was all about that product. I was about that product before it even released, because I was defending it from its stupid catchphrase because of its one thick coat. Like, what a terrible ad campaign.
That ad campaign ruined careers.
It really did.
Or changed them.
It definitely changed them. But modernly, I still love my contrast paints. However, I actually am a big fan of mixing the two. And I
Not literally.
What?
Not literally.
Oh yeah, not literally, but like
using both on the same miniature.
Using both, well, actually also mixing the two, because when I was working on my Seraphon, for example, I used the Duncan Rhodes Ivory Tusks, I believe is the color. It's the Tooth and Coats line. I believe it's called Ivory Tusk. So I was using that, and I was wet blending it directly in with Skeleton Horde to create a really nice effect on both the claws of my Carnosaur as well as the teeth. And I really, really enjoyed that. And I did a similar thing actually on the Seraphon when I was painting their spines, because I was using Aethermatic Blue to get that blue tint in there still, but using a pure white to mix in with it and doing some wet blending. So honestly, I am one of those people at this point. Experiment with whatever brands of paint you want. Try them all out, in fact. Not all of them, but like if you find one that you're like, oh, that seems interesting, try it and incorporate it into your painting habits as they are, because having more versatility, being able to use different types and doing cool techniques and combining those techniques means that you get even cooler looking pieces at the end. And I mean, what are we all here for but not to make cool art, right?
All right. The next question needs at least the preface, the information for those who don't know that you did, in fact, go to college. You did get a college degree.
Yes.
And you got it in what very useful and in-demand major?
Sequential art!
And what does that mean for those who may not know?
Oh, comic books. Yeah. Yeah, I majored in comic books. Very useful. Bachelor's of Fine Arts. Yeah! Woohoo! Okay, so context. I have a official bachelor's degree.
What college techniques do you bring to the hobby that you can share with us? That one was phrased very eloquently.
I approve. And okay. So there are two things that I specifically have in mind that I learned in college that I actually feel like is talked about kind of more modernly, but maybe not in a direct source. And I did learn these in college. And one of them is taking care of my brushes. I would highly recommend, if you don't already do this, to get some sort of brush soap. It doesn't matter what brand you get. You can get the pink stuff. You can get the one in the Winsor Newton stuff that comes in the little tub like what I use.
Sometimes it's called brush shampoo.
Yeah, sometimes it's called brush shampoo. But it doesn't matter which one you get. They're all, I think, useful. But maintaining your brushes and shampooing them after you've done a long project or something like that. And in the case of the one that comes in the tub, it's actually conditioner. So you can leave it in the bristles and just rinse it out before you're going to next paint. And it helps maintain the length of your, not the length, but the longevity of your brushes. It has saved me so much money. And it is one of the things that when I was in my comics book classes, looking into going into inking hardcore, that like was immediately talked about, because they're like, you want to get that ink out of your brushes. You don't want it to stay in there and destroy your brushes. So cleaning those is one thing. The other thing that I learned in college that I just think is very important is being able to pull a, like, we called it feathering. But it's basically a tethered line, or like a tapered line rather, like a straight one. And you see this in comic books a lot. It's often like the speed lines, or like the, sometimes people use it as like cross hatching for shading and stuff when you're doing like certain types of comic book styles and such. But that was really a lesson in practice and patience, which is something that I cannot iterate is a key factor in just improving your painting skills. Like, I know I've had a lot of people recently coming to me being like, I'm not a very good painter. And I'm like, that's okay. You don't have to be a very good painter right now. The point is if you enjoy it, paint more. And if you paint more, you'll get better at painting because you're doing it more. That's what I did. And I think like the whole pulling a straight line was both a lesson in patience as well as being able to just have control over my brush, which really, really helps you paint tiny, tiny miniatures.
All right. On top of that, what else would you say is your favorite painting tip or hack to give people to sort of get better at painting?
I don't care what you decide to call it or how you decide to approach it. Pre-shading, grisaille, slap chop, whatever. But it is a super, super easy technique, and I think it can immediately improve the overall quality and look of your final pieces, because it does present you with an opportunity to have a pre-existing highlight, midtone, and shadow already done on your model in neutral color tones that if you are working in such things like speed paint or contrast colors or any of those kinds of types of paints, it works really well, and you can see that underneath, and you get really, really beautiful natural highlights and shadows. I love it. I think everybody should do it. I do it so often on my own projects, and I think just it's the most underrated thing out there.
And to wrap us up, we had a couple of miscellaneous questions to ask. The first one is, Angela, what in your opinion is the perfect hobby date night?
Oh. Okay. The perfect hobby date night. If it is an opportunity and you get lucky and there's like a con or an event happening and they're doing a paint and take, and you have a girl that's like interested in painting, or you want to like maybe get into painting, do that. Do that. Take her out to a nice dinner. Take her to a paint and take. It would be lovely. Oftentimes, I do know that sometimes friendly local game stores do these events fairly regularly, or they have like a paint night. That would also be a perfectly fine, in my opinion, hobby date night. It would be so lovely. Another good one, of course, and this is just out there for people who enjoy a little bit of a spicier date night, strip Warhammer is always a good choice. Just saying.
And for our final question, Griff Oberwald or Lord Borak?
Lord Borak. Griff is so overrated. All right, guys, that has been our Q&A for 2024. It's been a little while since we did one, and frankly, I think everybody put together some fantastic questions. So thank you to my patrons and my YouTube members who submitted questions to be answered. I really, really appreciate you guys, and I hope you enjoyed getting to learn a little bit more about us here at Hobby Night, both me and the Chaos Cultist, and we will see you all next time. I hope you all have a wonderful Hobby Night, and thank you once again to both my patrons and YouTube members. Until we see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. That was a really long outro.
It was. I'm sorry.